35 to 150mm all-rounder lens from Samyang with autofocus in the L mount version. I wonder if it also replaces all the common prime lenses that are included. In this video, we will take a closer look at that. New for the L mount, a true all-rounder lens, 35 to 150mm. That is a huge focal length range with an impressive aperture of 2.0 to 2.8, suitable for full frame. It weighs 1.2 kilograms and is about 15 to 20 centimeters long. The body around it is made of plastic and metal. It does not make a negative impression at all. The plastic also feels very high quality here, and you get the sense that you are holding real quality in your hands. Personally, I like the small red ring on top. You have 2 focus hold points for extra comfort when photographing and filming. Otherwise, you have 3 different modes: autofocus or manual focus. Focus at the front is buttery smooth, zoom at the back is soft and flawless, corresponding to the size. As mentioned, there is a lock-unlock button for transport, so it stays compact and doesn't extend all the time. Samyang provided me with the lens and asked for an honest opinion. You will also get that in this video, because Samyang has not seen the video before I just uploaded it to YouTube. Accordingly, you can be sure that this is my honest opinion. However, I still have to label the video as an advertisement. Of course, the lens weighs quite a bit, but in return you get many focal lengths in one piece of glass. 6 common ones to be precise: 35, 50, 70, 85, 100 and 135, and all with a constant aperture of 2.0 to 2.8. That means you need a lot of glass. It's certainly not lightweight, but the flexibility is enormous. Besides the focus hold buttons on the lens, there are also 3 custom modes that you can set. In mode 1, you focus at the front and zoom at the back as usual. Mode 2 is particularly interesting for videographers. Focus at the front and change the aperture with the shutter button half pressed. Pretty ingenious. I am a big fan of zoom lenses. My ideal setup, for example, would include having an ultra-wide angle lens with me. For example, the 1605 and 30, and also the Samyang 35 to 150 mini. With that, I've pretty much covered everything with just 2 lenses and 1 camera on each trip. And the weight is manageable. Especially when traveling, it saves a lot of space. You don't have to carry multiple lenses, you can rely on one with an extreme focal length range. Let's briefly talk about the price. 1500 is certainly not a bargain, but when you look at the range of focal lengths included and the quality that Samyang brings here, it's really a fair offer. Of course, primes often have a better aperture and an even better look. I can't compare that here and I don't want to. So, we have to leave that aside a bit. It's just about the price, the focal length and the basic data that the lens covers. Of course, that absolutely does not mean that I will leave my primes at home in the future or do without them. But I will use my equipment more appropriately for the situation. For example, if I don't know, hey, do I really need 4 or 5 lenses tomorrow and I realize I can't judge it well, I'd rather take the Samyang with me and be sure. I want to address a particular feature that many curse, but I see as an advantage. The crop factor in LUMIX cameras, especially in the S series. As soon as you switch to 50 or 60 FPS at 4K, the camera naturally switches to APS-C. Here you have a 1.5x crop. This means that you suddenly have a 50 to 225mm in your hands, which is of course simply amazing with a constant aperture of 2.8. So, I see it as an advantage and can get even closer to the person at events where I want to remain unnoticed. When you look at other lenses that are in the same range and also have an aperture of 2.8, it immediately stands out that they are more expensive and they weigh more. The lens has excellent autofocus, both for photos up to 60 megapixels and for video. 90% of the time I had the lens on the LUMIX S5IIX, phase-based autofocus, bright enough for filmmakers. And I have never had any problems with the autofocus on my previous lenses. I don't know if my update from Samyang is still coming, but I have had to notice one thing or another a few times. Not always, no question, the focus does pump a bit, especially in difficult situations in the forest, in the bush, when I'm somehow trying to focus on a bee. In difficult situations, it sometimes wasn't 100% accurate. However, the focus in other situations was on point, where I would say, wow, especially since the wind was stronger. I tracked a flower with the focus, and it stayed solidly on the flower as it came into focus. I had the widest aperture, and it worked flawlessly. I think there will be a few more software updates in the future. What I personally really like is the lens flare. It's not too intrusive, yet it's very beautiful. And the aperture star is really nice to look at with an aperture from 5 to 8. So, hats off again to the build quality. You can see that some glass elements are used, which naturally contribute to the weight, but also to the look of the lens. I find the bokeh of the lens to be harmonious. There's a slight swirly bokeh visible in some settings, which I personally like a lot because it brings a unique characteristic. It's simply fun to work with this lens, and the pictures always turn out great. I mean, either you have a completely soft background like in this B picture, or you have a nice swirly bokeh like in this portrait. It worked out well. Thanks to the short minimum focusing distance of 33 cm in wide angle and 85 cm in telephoto, you can also take really good close-up shots with razor-sharp quality. If I have to come to a conclusion now, this will be my new always-on lens. It has a great focal length and offers incredible flexibility. It is bright, has individually assignable buttons, a great bokeh. The distortions are in the normal or barely visible range. It is robust and high quality. The only drawback for me personally is the weight, but I also work with lenses that are even heavier. I would therefore give an absolute purchase recommendation for all filmmakers and photographers in the fields of events, weddings, or travel. You'll be happy with it, trust me. Feel free to write in the comments how you would use such an all-rounder lens and maybe leave a like. If you leave a subscription, I might finally get over 1,000, which would make me happy. Then I can continue making such videos, and that motivates me a lot. So thank you very much for watching. Until then, you're Chris.